Chapter 5, we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, chord personalities. When I was a little kid, I used to, really little, like before I could read, I used to go into the piano room in our house after dinner. You know, your parents always take forever to eat dinner when you're like 5 or 6 years old. And I would go into that room and I wouldn't turn the light on, I'd leave it dark. So I'm in this pitch black room and I'm kind of like feeling around on the piano to find middle C. And I would just sit there and play chords, and I would listen to what they sounded like. I knew enough about chords, listening to the piano lessons of my older brother and sister, and I would just sit there and play triads and compare the way they sounded. And, you know, especially in the dark with no other input, you know, no visual input, I could really focus on the sound of the chords and the relationship of different chords. And now some chords created tension and other chords created rest. And later on, of course, I learned that tension and rest, you hear these terms dissonance and consonance. Well, that's really what that means, tension and rest. So even as a kid, I began to develop this sense of chord personalities and which chords work nicely together as a group and which chords sounded like, wow, this is from some other place. So what that developed in me is I can easily identify chords now. You know, if someone plays a song for me, I can identify what those chords are just by listening because each one kind of has this unique personality to me. So that's what we're going to dive into in this chapter. Probably the easiest chord personality for people to identify is what I call the home bass. This would be the one chord. It's the chord that the key is named after. If you're in the key of C, it's the C chord, the one chord, the big kahuna, the big cheese. It's the chord that when you hear it, you know you're home. You know the song is over. It's amazing to me how even people that don't know anything about music, they all know when the song is over, right? And they all know when the phrase is finished. That's because just even subconsciously, they're identifying that home bass chord. Now, knowing that we're always doing our theory in the key of C, those primary triads, remember we talked about, the primary triads would be that one chord, and the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, right? 1, 4, 5. Now, in the key of C, those would be C, F, and G. Now, I like to think of these just like the way I think of a family. The primary triads, the 1, 4, 5 chord, this is like your close family. This would be like mom and dad and brother and sister. These are the people you live with every day. These are the chords that you live with every day. 90% of the modern worship songs you play have these primary triads. It's the guts of most of the music we play. And it just makes sense because if you look, see how the C chord and the F chord actually share the same note? So there's actually a common tone between both of those. Same way with the G chord. The G is in both the G and the C chord. So these chords actually share kind of a common tone, kind of a common DNA, just like your close family. Now, we talked about secondary triads, right? These would be like, think of your extended family. Maybe this is like your aunts or your uncles or grandma and grandpa sort of thing. So in the key of C, these would be like the 2 chord and the 3 chord and the 6 chord. So in other words, you can do a song that stays right in the primaries. Lord, I lift your name on high, just right in the close family. Lord, reign in me, reign in your power. Just the primary chords, there's 4, 5, and 1. And every time you get to 1, it sounds like 1. It sounds like home. You can even walk through the extended family, the secondary triads. How about the end of Shout to the Lord? But when you get to 1, when you get home, it always feels like home. So what you're doing, you're identifying the 1, the home bass chord, when you identify that 1 chord. Now, you might ask, well, really all we're doing there is we're just using the scale tone, the triads built on the scale tones. What about the 5 black keys? Well, compare this to, how about if you have other relatives that live other places around the country? So maybe second cousins, or could even be people Uncle Joe, who's really not part of your family, but he's kind of part of your family. So you can borrow chords from other families, and they definitely are going to feel like, whoa, we just went for a little detour on the journey. That doesn't fit. So you could be in the key of C. You could be. So like you can borrow that B flat chord, which really doesn't belong in the key of C at all. But you can hear right there, you're right back in the key of C. But when you borrow chords, you definitely feel like you're taking a detour on your journey. You could borrow that E flat chord too. You could borrow the A flat chord. Now when you borrow chords and you sense the fact that, whoa, wait a minute, I'm away from my home base now, I'm pretty far away, I'm on a detour, that's the tension, that's the dissonance we talked about. And it's interesting how subconsciously everybody is really wanting that dissonance to resolve. You want to get back to the home base. You want to get back to that feeling of rest when you get to there, the one. And everybody identifies that that's one. Now we're home. Now the song can be over. So really what you're doing is you're identifying the personalities of those different triads, the ones that feel like the close family and the ones that feel like, whoa, we're definitely in a different zone now. I'm feeling some tension. I'm feeling some dissonance. I need that to resolve. I need that to resolve. And then when you finally get home to the home base and you identify the one chord, that's that feeling of rest that tells you that the song is over. Cool? Now, there's other great stuff in the Language of Music workbook you need to check out. There's some links to some internet sites that have great information about things like the physics of music and just the science of why that triad sounds restful. It's interesting that, not to go deep into it, but every major triad you play, the ratio of these frequencies are very simple numbers. It's a ratio of 4 to 5 to 6. So anytime you play a major triad, you can identify it because your ears are identifying the ratios of those frequencies. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, that's the system that God created. That's how we identify these chord personalities, is because our brains, in the blink of an eye, are identifying those frequencies. They're calculating the ratios, and your brain hears those three notes and it goes, ratio of 4 to 5 to 6, major triad. So, I mean, it always amazes me just the incredible system that God created and the science that goes into that. But definitely check out some of the links in the workbook, and if you want to dive in deeper, there's some cool stuff there.